So today, we're talking about unoffendable heart. Before we even talk about unoffendable, I just want to ask everyone, what makes it hard to forgive someone? What makes it hard? Think about it. I think what makes it hard is because when it involves forgiveness, that means something has been lost, something has been hurt, something has been damaged, destroyed. So it probably is hard. And whatever that is lost is something valuable to us. And sometimes, even when a person apologizes, you'll be like, your sorry, simple word will make me forgive you, but the loss, the valuable that I lost, is nothing compared to that simple word of sorry. And that, in my opinion, is what makes it hard to forgive. I don't know what makes it hard for you to forgive, but think about it. So today I want to talk about Matthew 18. Matthew 18. So Peter, I really like Peter in the Bible. I know a lot of people say he's blonde, he's impulsive, but I really like him because he is very human. So Peter came up to Jesus, and he asked Jesus this question, Lord, how often will my brother sin against me and I forgive him? Pause here. How often will my brother? So Peter is talking about a future possibility, right? He's thinking about, hey, in the future, how often will my brother? He's not talking about my, the store person, the neighbor. He's talking about my brother. So he's talking about the person in my community. So Peter is being very realistic. The truth is, a lot of times when we are offended, we are mostly offended by the people in our community. There could be exceptions, but most of the time, the people we have the hardest time to forgive are the people who are close to us, who may be in your workplace, in your school, or even at church. Some people, you might not even say it to them. They don't even know they offended you, but there's a grudge inside your heart. So Peter continued to ask, as many as 7 times? That's 7 times, there are 2 possibilities. One is 7 means perfect. So, perfect, so I just forgive him to that degree. There's a limit to that. Or 7 times because Old Testament often used number 7. So that could be the reason. And Jesus said to him, I do not say to you 7 times, but 77 times, or 70 times 7 times, depending on what translation you read. So Jesus' answer actually implied there's no limit to forgiveness. And forgiveness is beyond perfection. Because it's beyond the perfect number 7. And it's beyond the limit. So then, why do we have to forgive our fellows limitlessly? That's basically what Jesus is saying. But why then? Why? It's hard. When you have to forgive someone, that means you have been offended. That means someone has taken something valuable away from you. And yet, we have to forgive them beyond perfection, without limit. Why? That seems unreasonable and that seems difficult. So Jesus then tells us this parable. He said, therefore, the kingdom of heaven may be compared to a king who wished to settle accounts with his servants. When he began to settle, one was brought to him who owed him 10,000 talents. And since he could not pay, his master ordered him to be sold with his wife, children, and all that he had, and payment to be made. So by the way, whatever is going on here, this king is doing very within the legal system. He's not being mean, he's not being harsh, he's following the rules. Although confiscating everything that the man has probably would not make the payment, but he's following rules. He's making this, judicially fair. So let's think about what's 10,000 talents then. How much does 10,000 talent actually worth? So 1 talent is about 75 to 100 pounds of gold or silver. Because, back then they don't have a standard measurement, so about 75 to 100 pounds. Oops, that's fast. And 1 ounce of gold right now, or as of April 25th, it's about $1,162. But let's just say $1,000 for now, because they fluctuate the price. So $1,000 times 16 ounces, that's a pound, times 70 pounds, 10,000 talents, that's $12 billion. So this man, he owes $12 billion US dollars. That is huge sum. And just to give you a perspective, you know King David, he is super rich because he is the United Israel, the king. And he really, really wanted to build a temple of God. But God would not allow him. Because God said, your hands is filled with blood. So David says something really famous. I don't know if you remember in the Bible. He said, I would not offer to God that cost me nothing. So he wants to offer to God something that cost him a lot. So you know all that he could offer was 3,000 talents of gold, 7,000 talents of silver. Even King David, what he contributed to a Solomon temple wasn't just as much as $12 billion. And just a fun fact, in Jesus' time, when he was telling the parable, the whole Samaria and Judea, their entire tax was about 600 talents. So this man, I don't know how he did it, but that was an unthinkable amount. All right? Because remember the story about Zacchaeus. People hated Zacchaeus because Zacchaeus, you know, he's corrupted. He took away a lot of money. He probably, you know, taxed people higher. But even Zacchaeus, not as rich as this guy, because this guy owes 10,000 talents. That's $12 billion US dollar. Okay, you know, in the Bible, debt is often an analogy to sin. So let's think about us then. How much do we sin daily? How much do you sin daily? How much do I sin daily? Assuming we are all 40 years old, we will have lived 14,000 days, and about 3 million hours, 3.5 million hours. So how many sin per hour then? 1 or 2? How many jealousy, competition, judgmental thought that goes on in an hour? How many goes on in a day? Think about it. How many per year? If we live to 40-year-old, that's how much sin that there is. And that is unthinkable. You know, when I read the story, when I preach on the passage, I don't preach just the word of God. I don't just preach the truth. But I'm sharing from a perspective that I am like the person who owed $12 billion, 10,000 talents. The truth is, it is hard for me to forgive. And the truth is, I don't have that unoffendable heart. The truth is, I do feel like people owe me that and owe me that. But the fact is, I owe God 10,000 talents. I owe God $12 billion. That's beyond imagination. That's unthinkable. So the servant fell on his knees, imploring him, begging the king, have patience with me, and I will pay you everything. Hold on. Can he possibly pay him everything? Not really. $12 billion. Not really, all right? And he asked for patience. That means he asked for time, right? Give me more time. I'll pay you everything. And out of pity, or actually in the original language, it's actually compassion. It's actually the same word as the Old Testament used long-suffering love of God. So you know the compassion of God that he has for Israel, it's the same word here. So out of the long-suffering love of him, the master of that servant released him and forgave the debt. You know what that means? He was asking for time. I need more time to repay. But the king is giving him freedom, complete, total freedom. You know, a lot of times, I myself, I don't know why, sometimes I, overestimate myself. Sometimes when I sin against God, I come before him. I was like, give me more time, I'll fix myself. I will make myself right, I will grow, I will be better. But the truth is, I'm just too far from perfect. I sin a lot. Even today I say, God, I'm sorry, I won't be judgmental. And next minute, I am judgmental again. And I thought just having more time to grow up, to more mature, and I'll be better. No. And God doesn't be like judgmental, be like, Kitty, you are being really unrealistic. The king doesn't say, you know what, have patience with you doesn't work because it's impossible that you pay everything. The king does not say that. Rather, the king, out of the long-suffering love, he said, I'll give you complete freedom. I'll give you complete freedom. And that is the mercy of God. So, back then, when I was in seminary, I had to write a paper about why does Jesus have to go on the cross. That sounds very theological and simple, but it's actually very extensive research. And toward the end, I was in the library, I was typing the paper, very end. I actually typed something like this. I said, Jesus deserved to go on the cross because he willingly gave up his position as God, and he chose the status. And that status will for sure go to the cross, so he deserved because he knowingly chose that. And that moment, I was thinking to myself, I was asking myself this question, Kitty, the wage of sin is death. So if, let's just pretend, let's ignore the theological correct answer. If my death on the cross will wash away my sin, which it cannot. If my sin on the cross would wash away the sin, then Kitty, would you go on the cross? Or would you choose to send Jesus onto the cross? Honestly, that moment, my answer was, I'll send Jesus. Because I'm such a coward. I don't want to walk the path to the cross, the road of Calvary. I don't want to be humiliated. I am afraid to face my sin. I am afraid to face the consequence and the humiliation and the public, humiliation just being up there. No, I'll send Jesus there. Because that's just me. That's how selfish I am. And because that selfishness, and God knows it all, he still chose to go on the cross. That made it even more amazing. That made that grace and that compassion, that long-suffering love, even more powerful. When I only wanted more time to repay him, he gave me that complete freedom and said, you are forgiven and you are free to go. Knowing who we are by nature, he said, you are forgiven and free to go. And that love amazed me. And that moment in the library, I had tears streaming down my face because I realized he knows how coward, how selfish I am, but he still willingly chose the cross on behalf of my sin. He carried everyone's sin onto that cross. Just like the 10,000 talents. I owe $12 billion. I owe that $10,000. But he willingly said, you are free to go. You owe me nothing. The story continues though. But when that same servant went out, he found one of his fellow servants who owed him 100 denarii. And seizing him, he began to choke him, saying, pay what you owe. So his fellow servant fell down, pleading with him, and have patience with me, I will pay you. So that's just kind of like what happened before. And he refused and went and put him in prison until he should pay the debt. So let's pause here. 100 denarii, from his reaction, it seems a lot, right? Someone owing 100 denarii and you choke someone, and, that person fell down and said, I will have patience with me. I will repay you. So that seems like, at least from my perspective, seems like, oh, that must be a lot. But if you continue reading, then 100 denarii is actually 100 days of wage. So it's about 3 months roughly salary compared to $12 billion. Wow. That difference, that's like 6 million times difference. But still, 3 months of salary, that is a lot. That is a lot. That is still a significant amount. The reason why it's hard, it's unfair to forgive, because it's still a lot. It's not like $10, that's like 3 months of salary. That's a lot. But it's 6 million times smaller than what he had previously owed. This servant number one, when he was facing the king, he was kneeling down, begging the king to forgive him or to have patience with him. But after he went out the door, he started to choke someone who owe him smaller amount but still significant. You know what a sharp contrast that is? And I've realized I myself is like that sometimes. Sometimes I'm like, God, I sinned against you. I'm so sorry. I'm sinful and thank you for forgiving me. Yet, when someone sinned against me, or when someone doing something that I don't like, I start to become judgmental. I start to get offended. I start to be like, I don't go physically choke that person, but in my mind, I've already choked that person. But whatever that person did probably isn't as much as what I owe to God. And sometimes I realize I have this self-righteousness in me. Sometimes I think I am better than the person who offended me. I think, whatever he or she did, I would not do. But the truth is, whatever he or she did might be out of selfishness, cowardice, I don't know what it is out. I might have that same root, that same sinful root as that person. I am not better or worse than that person. In God's eyes, we are all fellow servants. Me and that person who is offending against me, we are fellows. We are at the same level. We sin against God at the same level. We are the same people in the eyes of God. But sometimes I have that self-righteousness, like, you don't deserve the forgiveness, but, sorry, I deserve the forgiveness of God because Jesus died for me. But Jesus also died for that person. Jesus also died for a person who sinned against us. But the truth is, forgiveness does not mean that it's free of consequence or hurt. Because the moment that the servant forgave the debt of 100 denarii, that means he let go of 3 months of wage. That is still consequence. That is still hurt. But that's what God did for us as well. When he forgave our sin, our debt, that there is still consequence. The heart of God still aches. Even though we sin and he forgave us, doesn't mean the heart of God doesn't break. God still hurts when he sees me sinning against other people. There is still hurt. There is still consequence. But the nature of forgiveness is undeserving. It's never fair to forgive someone. It's never fair. If we think, I don't want to forgive that person because it's unfair that he or she did this to me. Whatever he or she did, just that simple word of sorry, it doesn't suffice. Well, the truth is, forgiveness involves undeserving. It involves mercy, grace, and none of these we deserve. And the story continues. When his fellow servants saw what had taken place, they were greatly distressed, and they went and reported to their master and all that had taken place. Then his master summoned him and said to him, "You wicked servant, I forgave you all the debt because you pleaded with me. And should you not have the same mercy on your fellow servant as I have mercy on you?" And in anger, his master delivered him to the jailers until he should pay all his debt. So also my heavenly Father will do to every one of you if you do not forgive your brother from your heart. Whoa, that is harsh. That is very harsh. That's a command to forgive. Honestly, when I read that, the first time when I was reading that, I had a resentment. Because I was like, you know what, God? There must be a good reason why it's hard to forgive. And you think just threatening me to forgive, I would out of my heart forgive that person? Then you are wrong, God. Because just threatening me that I would not forgive you, and then out of fear I have supposed to forgive someone. That doesn't work with me. But as I spend more time to meditate upon that passage, I realize this is not the harshness of God. Rather, this is the tenderness of God. This is the tenderness of God. Because his heart is to restore. Without forgiveness, it is impossible to forgive. It's impossible to restore. Without forgiveness, it's impossible to restore. To restore relationship, to restore the wound, to restore the loss. He knows the loss and the pain. But he still wants us to forgive because he himself is our grace. So back in 2014, in the morning, if you can see, I don't know if you can see, at 10:14 a.m., I was at Crystal Cove State Park. So I was there by myself, and I took a picture of this. It was a Monday morning. And, Monday I have sabbatical, so I don't have class, I don't have anything. So I just drove in that morning to the beach. But the reason why I drove there is because at 8 a.m. in the morning, I had a huge fight with my mother. I had a huge fight with her that I was so angry that we fought for like almost an hour or so. And I actually ran out of the door. I said, I don't want to be with you. So I drove to the beach. On my way to the beach, I was on Jamboree, like past the church, and I was parked at the red light. It was red light. I was parked there, and tears were streaming down my face. And I was like, God, this is not fair. This lady, blah, blah, blah. I was complaining, and it was just tears streaming down as I was driving. I parked at the red light, and suddenly, boom, I got hit by a pickup truck. I was parked at red light, and I was hit by a pickup truck. In that moment, my compartment all fell off, it all popped open. But that moment, I remember this vividly. I remember that there was a warmth. It feels like someone was hugging me very tightly, and there was warmth. By the way, airbag did not pop out, so it was not the airbag, but it was just like a warmth, and just surrounds me. And that voice said to me, Kitty, doesn't matter if you do things right or wrong. You can do everything right, but people will still come and offend you. But I am with you, and I protect you. In that moment, my tears started drying up. And I felt like God was telling me, I wipe away your tears. And of course, I have to get down the car, and I have to look what happened. I have to take care of this thing. And I came out of the car. As I came out of the car, I don't know why, I was filled with calmness and peace. And I had that assurance that God was with me. Everything is going to be okay. And turned out the guy was driving the truck. He was like a newly hired teacher. He's ready on his way on the first day of school or something. And he was literally whipping. He was like crying all over his face and be like, oh, I'm so sorry. It's my first day of work. And then tell me all things. And I ended up wanting to pray for him. But I was the victim, right? I had to pray for him. I was comforting him. I was counseling him. Be like, it's okay. Don't worry. We all make mistakes. It's okay, blah, blah, blah. And then afterward, I don't know what's wrong with me. I still drove to the beach because I thought there was nothing happening. I don't know why. The peace was so surpassed all understanding that I really felt like my car was totally okay. So I continued to drive to the beach. That's why you have that picture. So I even drove to the beach, and not just that, I drove to the beach. In the afternoon, I even went to have a soup, and I took a picture of my soup. If you look, that's like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So I drove my car all day long without taking it to the shop because I thought it was okay. Until the moment I realized, I couldn't open my rear doors. And I was like, oh. And, my friend was like, you should take it to the shop because you just had a car accident. How can you be so calm about it? And I was like, I don't know. I feel like God was protecting me, and I felt fine. And I took it to 3 shops. 3 shops. Every single shop, the mechanic ran out and take a look of me, see if I'm fine or not. Because they said, just looking at the exterior, it looks like it will cost you $5,000. By the way, my car was an old Matrix. There's no way it costs that much. The car doesn't even worth that much. And then all 3 mechanics, all different 3 shops said that, you know what? You will probably have 1/3 of your car replaced because 1/3 of your car was squished in. And then they're like, you don't have any back injury? Do you want to go to a chiropractor? I was like, I literally feel fine. And even till today, I still feel fine. There was nothing going on. And I was like, okay. So I went to the auto collision, the insurance appointed one, auto collision body shop. And I was in that body shop. Literally, everyone there was, understandable, very paranoid, angry, was hurrying about the front desk, like, what's going on with my car? Everyone was yelling, screaming. And I was the only one who was sitting there quietly, calmly, and nicely. Because I knew the moment that God said, doesn't matter if you do it right or do it wrong, I'm here with you and I protect you. I wipe away your tear. I knew that God would take care of this. And because of my, surprising calmness and peace, that front desk actually chose to help me out first. And she actually shared with me all the tips about dealing with insurance and told me not to tell the insurance that she told me all these things. And it actually worked out great. And turned out, after about roughly 2 weeks, my car returned. And that white line, I don't know if you can see, this is all brand new because, it all got replaced. The car accident, that's how huge that is. I feel like in a lot of times in our lives, God is right. It doesn't matter if we do it right or do it wrong. People will just come and sin against you. But He is with us, even in that moment of hurt, even in that moment of loss. I still have to go through insurance. I still have to go through the loss of 1/3 of my car. I still have to go through that whole hectic process of calling insurance and putting on hold and everything. But He was with me all along, and I made a great testimony throughout the way. And I had that peace surpass all understanding. I literally had that peace. And I had that assurance that God will take care of my loss, which He did. And my car was quite dirty, and I got free detailing, car wash, and everything. And it's like, wow. Because God, His grace is what made our hearts unoffendable. His grace is what made our hearts unoffendable. He Himself protected me against my hurt. I want to encourage you, my friends, whatever you have lost or hurt, you may feel like you lost something, but God is there in the midst with you while suffering. And He protects you and He wipes away your tears. And let's pray.